What is going on, college basketball fans? Welcome back to another video. Today we got a brand new preseason bracketology by Joe Lunardi. As you can see, it was updated on September the 6th, just a few days ago. We're going to take this preseason bracket that Joe made, put it into our own PDF, and we are going to fill this out from the first round all the way to the national championship. And I'm also going to give you guys my opinions on if I think a team should be a higher seed or a lower seed as we go along as well. Shout out to my sub Alex for sending me this, and we're going to have more college basketball content here on the channel as the season gets closer. Been doing a lot of college football stuff, but I will have both on the channel. A lot more college basketball stuff coming. Anyway, getting that out of the way, let's fill this bracket out. We have Gonzaga as our top overall seed. I understand why they're the top overall seed, because they play in the West Coast Conference, and I don't even think that St. Mary's is going to give them as much trouble this year either. Not even a team like San Francisco is going to be as good this year. They lost a lot. They lost their best player. I still think North Carolina should be the number one team predicted because they play in a much harder conference, and I know Gonzaga plays a really good non-conference schedule because they have to, but I still would have North Carolina playing in the ACC, who I think is going to have a very good record as the top overall seed. But anyway, let's get started. We got Gonzaga beating Morehead State for sure. And it's interesting that he has Morehead State still making the tournament, even with Johnny Broome transferring out and going to Auburn. But hey, they're still a pretty decent team. Anything can happen in those mid-major conference tournaments. You know how it is. But Miami USC, very good 8-9 matchup. I like this prediction a lot, and I'm actually going to go with Miami. I think the guard tandem of Nigel Pack and Isaiah Wong is going to be very, very good. I don't know if Miami is going to be as good as the team we saw in the tournament last year, but I do think throughout the season and to the second round here, I think Miami will be pretty good and will be enough to get them past USC. Next, we got Dayton at a 5 seed. Very, very strong to have Dayton this high, but I am pretty high on them as well. They have a Malachi Smith on their team who is very good. Gonzaga has a Malachi Smith, of course, on their team too that transferred to them, but Dayton, I'm going to pick them over Rutgers and Stanford. Who would I have in this Rutgers-Stanford game? I would go with Stanford, actually. I think they're sleepers. I talked about this, and I think in my Pac-12 tier rankings video, I think Stanford could make the tournament this year, and it looks like Joe Lunardi's on the same boat with me. I think they are somewhat of a sleeper team in the Pac-12 there, but give me Dayton to advance. Then we got Auburn versus Towson. Not going to lie, I don't know too much about this Towson team, but we will see. I'm going to pick Auburn for now, though. Alabama versus Oklahoma in the 6-11 matchup. I'm going to pick my first upset here and go with Oklahoma. Alabama, a lot of people were picking Alabama to lose in the first round last year, and they ended up winning. I think this year, at least with this matchup, I think Oklahoma could get it done. Porter Moser, a really good head coach. They barely missed out on the tournament last season. I think Oklahoma, they have a good team. They're bringing a lot back from that team that barely missed out last season. I think the Sooners advance with that matchup. Then we get UCLA versus Penn. Out of the Ivy League, I'm definitely going to go with UCLA here in this one. I think this UCLA team this year with Jamie Yaquez, and they got a big-time freshman coming in. I can't quite think of his name right now. Amari Bailey is his name. I think they might actually be better than last year's UCLA team, which is saying something. So I think I am definitely going to take UCLA here over Penn. Then we get Michigan State versus Wyoming. Now, this is interesting. I like my Wyoming a lot. I think they should probably, no, they're the second best team for me preseason in the Mountain West, but how much do I really trust the Mountain West to get a win, especially over a Hall of Fame coach in Tom Izzo? I can't do it. Last year I was really high on the Mountain West because in the regular season they looked really good, but I think there was 3 teams in the Mountain West made the tournament. None of them advanced to the round of 32. I can't trust them. Wyoming, going to be a very good team, going to be competing for the Mountain West. I can't pick them over a Hall of Fame Tom Izzo coach. Given a different matchup, I might give it to Wyoming, but I just can't against Michigan State. Kansas versus Montana State. I think Montana State made the tournament last year. I don't think Kansas is going to lose to them. I think Jalen Wilson is going to be that next guy for Kansas, is going to step up. But we will see how Kansas looks after losing a lot of that national championship team. Then we got Gonzaga versus Miami. I think this would be a very good game and a closer game than a lot of people might think. But I think Drew Timme is going to be too much, especially since Miami lost their big man. But they did bring in a transfer from Arkansas State who put up really good numbers last year, but I don't know how he's going to be able to handle Drew Timme. I think Gonzaga is going to have enough here to make it to the Sweet 16. Then we get Dayton versus Auburn, and this is a fun matchup, a 5 versus 4. Auburn brought in Johnny Broome. They lost Walker Kessler. They lost, of course, Jabari Smith both to the NBA draft. I'm actually going to rock with Dayton here. I'm going to go with Dayton to the Sweet 16, and we get a Malachi Smith versus Malachi Smith matchup here in the Sweet 16. I like that as far as storyline reasons, and that's just honestly the way it panned out. Like, I think Dayton, if they're as good as they're hyped up to be, like he has them as a 5 seed, I think that they can get past this Auburn team, who is going to have a little bit of a new roster. So, Oklahoma versus UCLA. And I actually wouldn't mind picking OU to beat the Bruins here in the round of 32, because I do think Porter Moser, he's a really good coach, and they're going to be hungry, but Jamie Jaquez, I think he's going to take a leap this year. He's going to be I think he could be a top NBA prospect. Give me UCLA. Give me UCLA to move on. Michigan State versus Kansas. Okay, interesting. Tom Izzo, he's going to be prepared, but versus Bill Self, who do we want to go with here? Kansas got a lot of good recruits coming in. It's hard to tell how good they're going to be after losing Remy Martin, Ochai Abachi. The list goes on and on. David McCormick. I mean, it's hard to tell, but they got a lot of good guys coming in. I think I'm still going to go... Actually, I think Michigan State. I'm going to go Michigan State. They always play a tough game. They almost upset Duke last year in the tournament. I think this year they could beat Kansas in the second round. Give me Michigan State, Sparty, to move on to the Sweet 16. And now we got Gonzaga versus Dayton. And the big question mark that immediately comes to my mind is, does Dayton have somebody that can stop Drew Timme? We see Gonzaga struggles against teams that can stop Drew Timme, make him struggle a little bit. Of course, you do have to take in consideration that Gonzaga is probably going to have better guard play than they did last season. Even though they lost Chet Holmgren, that was really their only big loss. I mean, they got more experience at the guard position now than they did last year, especially with the pickup of Malachi Smith. And I don't think that Dayton is that team that's going to be able to disrupt Drew Timme enough in the paint like a St. Mary's did last year in the regular season, or like a Arkansas did in the tournament last season. So I don't think that they have a guy like a Jalen Williams of Arkansas, or those big guys that schematically just frustrated Drew Timme. I don't think Dayton has those guys, so I got to go with Gonzaga in this one. As much as I want to pick the Dayton upset, I just can't do it at this point. We haven't seen any of these teams, of course, play, but right now I just cannot take a Dayton team over this Gonzaga team. Now we got UCLA versus Michigan State, and I'm rocking with the Bruins again. We get the 3 seed making it to the Elite 8 and beating this Tom Izzo Michigan State team, which overperformed as a 7 seed, making it to the Sweet 16. Then we get Gonzaga versus UCLA matchup, a matchup that they always seem to be in the same region. And they had that historic Final Four matchup a few years ago in the COVID year. But, man, who do I want to go with? I think, Tiger Campbell's coming back. Amari Bailey, I think he's going to be a big-time player. Jamie Yaquez. Down low, does UCLA have enough? I think they can schematically frustrate Drew Timme enough, and I think the guard play is very good. I'm going to go with UCLA to make the Final Four. Let's make it happen. Let's go with the Bruins to beat Gonzaga. Gonzaga, another year where they're the top overall seed and not the national champions once again. Now let's go to this bottom region. We get Houston versus Howard. Of course, I'm going to go with Houston. Jamal Sheed, you got Marcus Sasser. I mean, that guard tandem right there is just crazy. Houston's going to be a problem this year. They're going to be an issue for a lot of teams. St. Louis versus Virginia Tech. I think this is St. Louis's year to get a win in the tournament, especially matched up against the Virginia Tech team, who was lucky to make it to the tournament last year. And I think that they still can potentially make it to the tournament again. But facing St. Louis, I don't expect Virginia Tech to get a win in the tournament. So, St. Louis, give me them to move on. Then we get San Diego State versus Drake. And here we're back with another Mountain West team. San Diego State especially, they've won the Mountain West a lot recently. And they're always up here towards a 5 seed a couple of years. And they never make the run that everyone always predicts them to. I do really love Matt Bradley. He's one of my favorite mid-major players coming into this season. He's a beast point guard, a buff guy. He's a great defender. He's in your face. I love his style of play. Can they defensively get a win over a Drake team that's a 12 seed, 12 over a 5? That's a scary pick here, but I'm going to go with San Diego State. I think it's going to be a close, disgusting defensive game for San Diego State. That's what they like to play in, though. Give me San Diego State to move on for now. Then we get Creighton versus UC Santa Barbara. And UC Santa Barbara, they were really good a couple of years ago, but give me Creighton to win this one. Creighton, if I could spell it right, they're the team that I'm most excited to watch this year. Like, I'm excited to see their starting 5 go out there with all the passers that they have, all the shooting they have, go out there and play basketball. I cannot wait to watch them play against Big East teams. I actually would have them projected as a higher seed than a 4 seed, me personally, but yeah, I think that they would beat UC Santa Barbara. Creighton, I'm so excited to watch this team play, man. I hope that they live up to the potential that they have. I really, really do. They just need Trey Alexander, them boys, to live up to that potential. And then they got Baylor Shire, man. They got Kalkbrenner down low. I mean, the Blue Jays are nice, man. I cannot wait to see their potential play out. Illinois versus Notre Dame. I'm going to go with Illinois. This is a different Illinois. Like, Illinois, they haven't been making it far in the tournament the past few years, even as higher seeds. I think they were a 4 seed last year. They were a 1 seed when they got upset in the second round to Loyola Chicago. They never really go far, but this is a different Illinois team. No more Kofi Coburn, but they have a Matthew Meyer, a guy who's won a national championship. They got a Terrence Shannon Jr., a Big 12 guy who's athletic and has a lot of potential, maybe a future NFL or an NBA player. I mean, this is a different Illinois team. Sky Clark coming in, probably going to play point guard as a freshman. I like Illinois over Notre Dame in this matchup. And Notre Dame, a good team. They also got a big-time freshman coming in themselves, who's also a guard, I think a shooting guard. But give me Illinois to move on. Arkansas versus Colgate, and I'm going with Arkansas, man. This dude, Anthony Black, 6'8", 6'7" point guard. He's going to be nasty. They also got Nick Smith Jr., number 1 overall prospect coming in. I mean, this is like a Duke team coming in with all these great top freshmen coming in and taking over. Like, they reloaded a lot like Duke does every year. They lost their top guys. They brought in some new guys. I think Arkansas is going to be great, and they should be the toothpaste, no problem. Even though Colgate has come very close last year to pulling off an upset. But give me Arkansas. Xavier versus Iowa. Xavier got their new coach, Sean Miller, returning to the Musketeers to coach, and I think that's a great move. Their coach last year was just terrible. But Xavier can be a really good team. Iowa, a lot of people were expecting Chris Murray to take that same jump that Keegan Murray made. I don't know about that. I think Chris Murray is going to be pretty good, but do I think he's going to be as good as Keegan Murray? And even with Keegan Murray last year, they lost in the first round to Richmond. I'm going to go with Xavier. I'm not big. It's hard for me to trust Big Ten teams, and especially a team in Iowa where your best player is somewhat unproven yet, and it's kind of based on potential. And me personally, I'm not that high on Big Ten teams, especially this year. So many times they disappointed me in the tournament. I can't pick Iowa in that one. I just can't. But next up, we got Baylor versus Louisiana. Louisiana's supposed to be sneaky good next year, but I'm going to go with Baylor. They're too stacked. They got so many good guards on that team, it's not even funny. Baylor moves on. And now we got Houston versus St. Louis. And I am going to go with Houston. That being said, I think St. Louis will give them a game, but Houston, very experienced. They're going to be one of the best teams in the country. As you can see, Joe Lunardi's got them as a 1 seed. They're very well coached. Give me the Cougs to move on in this one. Then we get San Diego State versus Creighton. This region is stacked. Houston, Creighton, Arkansas, and Baylor are your top 4 seeds, and Illinois is in there. San Diego State's in there. Even St. Louis is a sneaky good team this year. This region right here is stacked. This is going to be very interesting. San Diego State, who's going to be able to control the pace of this game? San Diego State, who's going to want to slow you down, have like 50 points for each team in the game. I think Creighton could win that way. Even if San Diego State controls the pace, I think Creighton could win that way. But if Creighton controls the pace and goes fast pace, shooting threes, putting up 85 points, putting up 90 points, I don't think San Diego State can win that game. So that being said, I think to win, San Diego State's going to have to play their game, control the pace. And even if they do that, Creighton can still possibly win. So I am leaning more towards Creighton to win that one. Then we get Illinois versus Arkansas. And I do like this Illinois team with the transfers that they picked up. But I think Arkansas, the young team, comes out of this one with a win and moves on to the Sweet 16. And then we get Xavier versus Baylor. And I'm going to go with Baylor. Actually, that one's not too hard. I think Baylor's just way more talented in that one. Scott Drew, amazing head coach. But yeah, Houston versus Creighton now. Who do we want to go with here? Houston or Creighton? Creighton's such a good team, man. Creighton's such a good team. I mean, this really depends on like Trey Alexander. Are Creighton's guards going to take that step that everybody expects them to? That's the big question mark for me. Because I know what I'm going to get from Baylor Shireman and Kalkbrenner. But the guards, it's a little bit potential based. A lot of these teams are potential based. But Houston, I think I'm going to go with Creighton. I'm going to go with Creighton to win this one. I think Trey Alexander does make that step, and I think Creighton is going to have one of the best starting fives in the country. And even though I love that Houston team a lot, and it sucks that both these teams have to play each other in Sweet 16 because they're probably two of the teams that I want to see succeed this season. But both made it to the Sweet 16. Give me Creighton to move on. Arkansas versus Baylor. Both teams very, very good recent success in the tournament. Arkansas's made the Elite Eight 2 years in a row. Can they make it a third right here with a win over the 2020 national champions, a Baylor team who's coming off of a second-round loss to North Carolina last season, losing Matt Meyer, but have a lot of talent on that team. Flo Thamba, a lot of good guards, Keontae George coming in. That team is just so stacked, and I think Baylor's experience is going to be enough to beat the younger team in Arkansas and make it to the Elite Eight. Eric Musselman versus Scott Drew. That's such a good coaching matchup as well. Then we get Creighton versus Baylor. And this game, I could see this game going to double overtime and being 95-92. High scoring, high paced, just a lot of drama. And who would I have winning that game? I think Baylor might be a little bit more proven. I'm going to go with Baylor to win that one and move on, if I could spell today, and to the Final Four out of that region. Tough region there. So much fun to watch, but I think Baylor gets a good matchup there with Creighton. It's going to be a crazy game, but yeah, I like that matchup a lot. It would be a ton of fun. Then we got North Carolina versus Winthrop. Give me North Carolina, of course. Then we got Texas A&M versus Ohio State. Ohio State losing, Malachi to the draft, losing E.J. Liddell. Texas A&M on the brink of making the tournament last year. Buzz Williams, a great head coach. Give me Texas A&M to move on to round of 32. Arizona versus Liberty. Liberty expected to be a pretty good team this year. Arizona losing a lot from that team, but they still have some great talent as well. I thought their head coach coming from Gonzaga has done a great job so far in his first year. Last year, of course, he was a 1 seed, made it to the Sweet 16. He's doing an excellent job there. I'm actually going to take Liberty, though. They're expected to be a very good team. I haven't taken a 12 over a 5 yet, and I like this Liberty team. They're getting a lot of hype, and if they can get to a 12 seed, I could see them pulling off an upset. Then we get TCU versus Grand Canyon. I really hope that Grand Canyon is good again and makes the tournament again, because the atmosphere they have at Grand Canyon University basketball games is actually pretty electric. They have amazing fans there, and I would love for them to be good enough to make the tournament and maybe even make a run in the tournament. However, I cannot pick them over TCU. I'm very high on this Horned Frogs team. Eddie Lampkin Jr. I think is going to be a beast in the paint. And then, of course, they have Mike Miles, who in my preseason All-American predictions, I had him, I think, as an All-American third team point guard. I think TCU is going to be very, very solid this year. Then we get Texas Tech versus UAB. UAB, another team that's supposed to be very good. I really like the mid-majors in this region. UAB is going to be very good, and they are a lot more athletic than you might think. And for a Texas Tech team that usually beats teams by just being way more athletic than them and being longer than them, I think UAB, even though they're a mid-major program, of course they're not as athletic as this Texas Tech team, but they can run with them. And Jordan Jelly Walker, they picked up, I think his name Brandon Murray from LSU, who's pretty decent. Give me UAB. I'm going to pick another upset, and I know Texas Tech's going to be very good. They picked up Fardos Imac out of the transfer portal, so they got him. They still got some other great players as well, but I like UAB a lot this year. I didn't pick too much upsets in the first two regions. I like UAB and Liberty in these matchups a little bit. I truly do. So give me UAB to move on. Indiana versus Iona. And Iona making the tournament once again. Coached by Rick Pitino. And as you guys know, I'm not that huge of a Big Ten. I'm not that huge on Big Ten teams in the tournament. I know they got Trace Jackson Davis, who's going to be I have him as a preseason All-American. He's going to be a beast. Indiana, a very good team. I'm going to pick Indiana for round 1, but I'm not too high on Indiana really at all, man. Iona, they haven't gotten a win in the tournament yet. You know what? Indiana, I think I predicted them to win the Big Ten this year, but I'm just not high on the Big Ten as a whole. I don't think that Indiana has much competition in the Big Ten this year. There's going to be teams like Michigan State, Illinois, who are going to be competitive. Even Purdue, who I think is going to be decent but worse than last year. Like, the Big Ten got a lot worse this year with all the players that they lost. I think Indiana should be the favorite to win the Big Ten, but I'm going to have them losing first round to Iona, 14-3. We've seen 15s beat 2s the past 2 years. We've seen 14s over 3s a lot recently. I think we're going to get one, and I like this matchup for Iona. The mid-majors in this region are taking over. And we got UConn versus Memphis, and I'm actually going to go with Memphis. Another upset, a slight upset, 10-7. I really like the Memphis pickup. They picked up that great scorer from SMU. He could take over the tournament. I mean, he was averaging over 20 points per game last year, and I think Memphis, under Penny Hardaway, he is going to flourish. And this might actually be a better Memphis team this year, even without Imani Bates and Jalen Durham, but I still think Memphis might be a better team than that team last year. Then we get Tennessee versus Vermont, and that's kind of, I could see the Caramounts maybe even picking up a win over this Tennessee team, man. That's actually crazy. I could see a Vermont over Tennessee victory. Tennessee usually doesn't perform that well in the tournament, but the thing is, Vermont, they've made the tournament a lot recently, and I always think the Caramounts have a good matchup. Like last year they faced Arkansas, and I didn't like that matchup for them because I thought if Vermont got a favorable matchup, then they could get a win. They had to face Arkansas in the first round last year. I kind of want to pull the trigger on this one as well, but I've already picked a lot of upsets in this region. But I'm going to do it. We've seen 2 15-2s in a row the past 2 years. Give me the Caramounts to upset the Vols 15-2. Let's make it happen. I like the matchups for the mid-majors in this region. Wasn't picking a lot of upsets, but that's because all the good mid-majors are in this region. They're literally all in this region, so let's take it, man. North Carolina versus Texas A&M. I don't see Texas A&M beating North Carolina. I think Texas A&M can beat Ohio State, but I still think Texas A&M talent-wise is a weaker 8 seed. So I think North Carolina should have no problem there. Then we get Liberty versus TCU, and I'm going to pick TCU over Liberty. That's where Liberty's run ends right there. And then we get UAB versus Iona, an 11 versus a 14 seed to make it to the Sweet 16. A fun matchup. I think Iona coaching-wise will get it done over a UAB team that has some good talent. Give me Iona to advance to the Sweet 16. And we got Memphis versus Vermont. And man, Vermont, they can handle Tennessee. I think that they can beat this Memphis team. A Memphis team that I have praised, said it was better than last year's team, but I still think Vermont could beat them. So give me the Caramounts to advance to the Sweet 16. And then we get North Carolina versus TCU in the Sweet 16. Give me North Carolina. I do really like that Eddie Lampkin Jr. Versus Armando Bacot matchup. I think that that's going to be an awesome center matchup, and it's going to be a very entertaining game. But North Carolina just has so much talent on that team. I think this is a game that's going to go down to the wire, and it's going to be North Carolina's first real test of this tournament. But give me North Carolina to move on. Then we get Iona versus Vermont. 14 versus 15 in the tournament. You love to see it. And I'm going to go with the Caramounts. 15 seeded for the second year in a row. And for the second time ever, makes it to the Elite 8. Let's go Caramounts, man. Let's hop on the bandwagon. They are riding to the Elite 8. And then North Carolina versus Vermont to go to the Final Four. And I'm going to go with North Carolina. Tough draw. They have to play the best team in the country after making it to the Elite 8. But Vermont, I still think, gives them a little bit of a run for their money. Hangs in there with Carolina, but ultimately loses that one. Then we get Kentucky versus Southern. I'm very high on this Kentucky team to make a big-time comeback after losing to St. Peter's in the first round last year. I'm very high on this Kentucky team. Then we get Purdue versus Oklahoma State. And as you guys know, I'm not too high on the Big Ten, especially this year. I mean, almost any year I'm not too high on the Big Ten. Call me a hater if you want, but they just don't perform well in the tournament. They just don't. And Purdue losing their guys, man. Even though they still got Zach Edey, but losing Trevion Williams, Jaden Ivey, just not too high on this Purdue team. And I know they got some younger guys who are going to step in, but I think Oklahoma State, they got some good guys on that team. They're a good, solid team. Like they don't have a star player, but they play very well together. Give me Oklahoma State coming out of the Big 12. I like that pick. Virginia versus Furman. I'm not too high on. I only have 112/5, but I don't know too much about Furman to pick them over Virginia. And this is a Virginia team I think is going to make a big comeback after not making the tournament last year. They're going to have one of the best defenses in the whole country. So give me the Cavaliers to move on here. Villanova versus Toledo. Interesting matchup. Really anyone can come out of the MAC conference and make the tournament. I do think Toledo might be the best regular season team, so they should be the favorites. But in the MAC conference tournament, anything can happen every year. But I will take Villanova over Toledo in that one. Then we get Oregon versus either St. John's or St. Mary's. I'm going to take St. John's to beat St. Mary's in the play-in game, and then I'm going to take St. John's to beat Oregon in the round of 64. So give me St. John's, Saint versus Saint in the play-in game, and then St. John's beats Oregon. I really like Posh Alexander. I had him as a preseason All-American. Andre Curbelo, I think, is going to improve from his six-man role at Illinois last season. I really like this Red Storm team, and I do think Oregon is going to bounce back a lot like Virginia and be a pretty good team after not making the tournament last year, but I still think St. John's might have the better team, even though they are the lower seed here. We got Duke versus Oral Roberts. Is Max Abima's still the point guard at Oral Roberts. I'm guessing so, since they are predicted to make the tournament here by Joe Lunardi. I still don't think it's going to be enough for Duke. I think Jeremy Roach should be able to try to check him as much as he can. And then what else does Oral Roberts really have? Next up, we got Michigan versus Florida. This is a fun matchup. We got Castleton at Florida versus Dickinson at Michigan. And Michigan, they made a run last year in the tournament, and I was sleeping on Michigan. I will admit that. And I think Michigan, even though I don't like Big Ten teams this year, could be a sleeper to pick. And I like what Florida's done with their roster this year, and I think they will make the tournament from it. But I still got to go with Michigan to move on. I think too experienced. I think Michigan might actually be better than they were last season. Texas versus Fort Wayne, and considering I don't know who Fort Wayne is as a team, and I don't know if I ever watched a Fort Wayne game, I might have, and I'm pretty high on Texas this year. Give me the Longhorns to move on in this one. Kentucky versus Oklahoma State. The 8-9 seeds are pretty weak this year. I think Kentucky will win that one, at least in the preseason. They seem pretty weak. Virginia versus Villanova. Tough one, man. Villanova, new head coach this year. But still, a guy that's been in the program, knows the system, is going to do similar things. Virginia, I mean, this is going to be a coaching battle, man. I'm going to take Virginia. I think defensively they can get it done. I really like what Kentucky has to go through here. I don't even think Virginia's too hard of a task for a Kentucky team that should be pretty dominant. I really like the road here for Kentucky. I'm going to go ahead and make this pick because I think Kentucky, too much talent for Virginia there in the Sweet 16 matchup. And we got St. John's versus Duke. And I really want to do it, guys. I really want to do it. St. John's could beat Duke. Again, Coach K retired. A lot like Jay Wright at Villanova. New head coach. Another guy in the program who's taking over. Just like at Villanova. They still got a ton of 5-star talent coming in. They're going to be really good. I'm going to take St. John's to pull off the upset, though, and beat Duke to move on to the Sweet 16. Let's make it happen. Red Storm to the Sweet 16. Then we got Michigan versus Texas. And I am going to take Texas in this one. I really like their pickup of Tyrese Hunter from Iowa State. Stole a guy from in conference, and they still got Timmy Allen coming back, which I really like as well. So give me Texas in that one. And then we got Texas versus St. John's in the Sweet 16. And I'm going to take Texas again. I think Tyrese Hunter is going to be a breakout star this year. And even though I'm really high on Posh Alexander, and that's a really good matchup, give me Texas to move on right there. And then we got Kentucky versus Texas. And I am going to take Kentucky to win once again. I think Oscar Tshiebwe I think Kentucky's going to dominate throughout this tournament, and they're going to dominate a lot more than what people think. I mean, they got Jacob Toppin, who is going to be a lot more improved this year. They got 2 big-time 5-star recruits who's going to come in and help. They still got Wheeler coming back. It's not just Tshiebwe on this team, guys. Kentucky is going to be a force this year. So what do we got? We got a Pac-12 team, we got an ACC team, we got an SEC team, and we got a Big 12 team. Look at the variety. Let's go. UCLA versus Baylor. That is a really good matchup. Tiger Campbell versus like Keontae George, LJ Cryer, those great guards on Baylor. And then you got Jamie Yaquez. You got to get somebody to check him. That's a good matchup, man. That's a good matchup. And I'm looking at that North Carolina-Kentucky matchup as well. It's also a very good matchup. maybe even a better one. All right. Who do we got? We got two teams that played in a very tough road to get here. UCLA versus Baylor. I'm going to take Baylor to win this one. I think that they can get the job done and make it to the national championship this year. And then I think what's his name, man? Their center is actually Mo Thamba. Mo Thamba is actually going to improve a lot this year at center, and he's tough to stop, especially when they run all those off-ball screens and stuff. When you watch Baylor play, it's really they have a wonderful offense. It is amazing to watch. I would just say that. I think that they'll be able to topple UCLA in the Final Four. Then we got North Carolina versus Kentucky. Armando Bacot versus Oscar Tshiebwe. You got Jacob Toppin versus Pete Nance. You got, you name it, man. These matchups are crazy. Carson Wallace coming in as a freshman. Going to have to go up against this North Carolina team. I think North Carolina and Kentucky both steamroll to the Final Four based on these matchups. They're going to be the two most dominant teams in the country this year. I'm calling it right now. And they meet in the Final Four. I would love to see these two teams meet for the championship. But I am going to go with North Carolina. I think the guard play, for me, more experience, and I trust them more at North Carolina than I do with Kentucky's guards. And Oscar Tshiebwe does bring Kentucky to the Final Four, but falls short of this dominant Armando Bacot-led Tar Heel team. Armando Bacot, just a beast, man. Just a beast. Give me North Carolina there. So we got Baylor versus North Carolina championship matchup. A 2 seed versus a 1 seed. Who is going to bring home the natty? And I am going to go with North Carolina after just falling short last year to a really, really good Kansas team. Wins it all. Armando Bacot, Final Four, most outstanding player with his defense over Oscar Tshiebwe. And just his offense, of course, his dominant rebounding, his dominance over Flo Thamba in the national championship. Tar Heels are your national champions. And that is going to do it for this video. Let me know who would be your preseason national champion at this point. We still got a couple more months till basketball season starts. I'm going to have a few videos still here and there for college basketball. But as we get really close to the season, like within a few weeks, I'm going to start pumping out more and more college basketball content along with my college football content. So if you guys are new, make sure you guys subscribe. And yeah, guys, thank you for watching. I'm out.